Afternoon. I'm Lieutenant General Pana, retired just recently from the position of the Chief of the Air Force Staff in Romanian Air Force. And I got the honor to moderate some of the very interesting panels of this conference. The title is Lesson Learned from Ukrainian Front for the Unmanned Systems and Counter-Drone Technologies. What the organizers did wonderful in this conference was to choose very wisely the speakers. So you have three experts on this domain that are going to enlighten us a little bit on the topic. Ukraine got itself into a war for 2 years right now, and from outside we are saying this is a network-centric warfare, a drone-centric warfare. Basically the continuous adaptation and technological advances of Ukrainian forces in order to face the Russian armed forces. So what they did, they used the technological advances and the drone technologies for an asymmetric approach of the warfare, introduced new things. I mean, who would have imagined nobody had a unmanned forces command like the Ukrainians do right now, just to integrate unmanned systems for all the categories of forces. And most of these unmanned are, of course, relatively cheap. We are speaking of $500, $700 per piece, and they are first-person view and so on. But what they are doing with these drones is really wonderful. That's too much from my side. As I said, we do have the real experts here on the topic. And I will start by introducing Lieutenant General Dragoș Jacob, who's the Deputy Chief of Defense in Romanian Forces. He is occupying this position since January 24 and has a professional experience at tactical operational and, of course, strategic level. He was from platoon commander to division commander, and finally he commanded the multinational corps Southeast before occupying the current position. He has many distinctions that were awarded to him. I will just mention Emblem of Honor of the General Staff, the non-Article 5, and the Military Virtue Order in the rank of Knight and Officer. So without further ado, General Jacob, you do have the floor, please.
Well, thank you very much indeed. It's a very interesting, because I'm not an expert in unmanned systems. I'm a planner
you cannot choose. You are an expert.
I am a planner by education and by, I don't know, I won't say vocation but somehow this job is it's a kind of a vocational job. But I'm a planner, and I plan capabilities to achieve effects. And definitely, I looked at this issue from the planner's perspective. I was a commander because all the stars aligned in the proper sequence, and I enjoyed a lot of expertise from the teams that I work with. But it's not just about me. I'm looking at this technology like it's following the same suit as any other type of new technologies. And if you think about it, throughout the history, the first aerial tools were used, probably, if I remember correctly, in the Battle of Valmy, 1783, the balloons. They were used to observe and coordinate larger masses of soldiers and to streamline, let's say, that gap between the commander that was on the hill with huge masses of soldiers. Actually, they were volunteering type of army. And then it evolved and it reached to a point, and this is completely unintentional, sir. General Pana, it's not because you are an Air Force renowned pilot, but it reached to the point when the Italian Douai said that you can win a war just using the Air Force. So it was an evolution of a technology that came out of a need. And I'll come back later about the need, about this, the way I see it, it happened. A second example would be the machine gun. The machine gun appeared, in my opinion, from the need to stop the attacking human waves once the armies became massive, and they needed to be, and they evolved so well that they determined somehow the creation, let's say the usage of the tank in order to solve the deadlock riddle of the First World War in the Western Front. So we see this piece of technology which comes from an operational need, and somehow it comes from a bottom-up approach, not necessarily a top-down. And I think this is the case here in the case of the unmanned systems. You have the tool, and then you use it, and then you identify its limits, and then you go and you adapt it, and you use it again, and then you realize that you need the structure, you need the doctrine, and you need an integrating, overarching concept that finally, and I think the Ukrainian example is actually very, very, very illuminating. I just came out of the previous panel, and of course, it's very difficult to add something else once you heard John Petreus talking about drones to some extent. But I'll try to offer you my personal opinion about how do I see this piece of technology and what I think we should learn, I did learn from what I have seen, and what I think it's going to, how it is going to influence the warfare in the years to come. And I'm using two types of framework. The first framework is the one that is related to the levels of the operational art. I think if we look strategically, the drones are a perfect example on solving the need of a demassification of the armies. You have smaller armies doing complex tasks, and this is how you use this tool, regardless of the medium it operates, and solve that problem. And it's this exactly related to the strategic level also, because it allows you to save lives and to preserve the human resources, which, as you heard, it's something that is of much concern, mostly in the armies that are democratic, where the life of a human being is the most, should be the most protected asset that you have as a commander. It's not the case in the authoritarian regimes, and we have seen countless examples of disrespect of human lives in attacking waves, wave after wave, just to get a couple of 100 meters on the ground. And the third strategic aspect, I think, it's the manufacturing of the drones, which reached a strategic level scale, in my opinion. If you are capable of producing tens of thousands of drones a month, and I'm not talking just the Ukrainians, it looks like in the New Strategy Center study, it looks like the Russians are capable of doing that, but on an industrial scale, state-controlled, not commercial type of production. And this has a strategic impact because it gives the population, at least in the Ukrainian example, I mean, I have read that there are kits that are distributed to people and they assemble drones like you assemble a piece of furniture. So that becomes the, puts the availability to a different scale. And we are not talking just first-person view drones. It's probably more on that. If I go down a little bit to the operational level, two things come into my mind. One, actually, I would say probably three. Definitely, we have seen the drones using all the physical mediums. We have aerial drones, definitely surface and undersea drones, and although I don't have raw data, I think pretty soon we'll see land drones with operational impact on the battlefield. Definitely, it's a well-known fact. We are using it in the Romanian military, the small drones for taking care of the EOD, explosive, the ordnance disposal teams, helping them to stay out of a harmless way when disarming different explosive devices. That will be one. The second one is how as I was talking about the bottom-up approach, if you think about the need was now to create that center. So technically, the Ukrainians are now considering, probably they already did that, to have a different service that will coordinate at the operational level, I would say, in my opinion, the coordination effort through all the physical mediums and give that coherence of achieving the desired effects. And last but not least, on the operational level, I think it's about the CIS backbone, which I would put it at the operational level. You can't operate at such a large scale an army of drones, if I may say so, if you don't have an adapted, resilient, redundant command and control system that is capable of operating under limitation, but also to be able to allow you to switch and look for different effects in different mediums. And reaching the tactical level, now I'm coming to the second framework of analysis, and it is the so-called warfighting functions. And for those of you who, I don't want to stress you with the military jargon, but the warfighting functions is a framework through which a commander and the staff visualize and synchronize effects, lethal and non-lethal, on the battlefield. And it has 6 elements. One of them is command and control. Definitely, what we have seen in the Ukrainian battlefields, the command and control became more streamlined. Unfortunately, the Russians learned some of the lessons the hard way, but they are learning as well. What actually the drone allows you to do as a commander and a staff, it compresses your decision cycle. It gives you, it allows you to have a shorter decision cycle than your opponent. Because the drones can observe, can send imagery, can send other type of information into the staff processes, enables the decision of a tactical commander. And we have seen that. Intelligence, I don't think we need to point out more what the drones, how the drones transform the way you survey the named area of interest, you collect imagery, and then enabling the staff processes. Maneuver, when you talk to maneuver, it's kind of interesting because on the land domain, the drones enabled maneuver or prevented maneuver. If we take a look at the dynamics in the Ukrainian offensive in Zaporizhia region, we could see that because of the drones up in the sky, Russian and Ukrainian, the maneuver, as we've learned in the war college, were seriously impeded. But on the maritime domain, I think what the drones, the naval drones did, actually they maneuvered in a way in which probably the sailors will say, well, it was more specific to large frame vessels. When you talk about protection, protection is absolutely paramount, and we've learned a lot of lessons just looking at how you protect your assets, your people, your command posts, your logistic nodes under a constant surveillance from the sky, from the drones. You will be, interestingly enough, fires, absolutely, the kill chain, that period between the sensor, the shooter, and again the assessment of the battle damage was very much shortened by this technical tools. And last but not least, information operations. I think it's in the same time a morale booster because now you know that you have a chance to fight the next day, because there is some technical thing that you can actually ask a program to do your job. And the second part of it is quite affecting the morale of the opponent, because if you look at all those video footages that are online with an FPV entering on the back door of an infantry fighting vehicle, killing everybody inside, that's probably something quite stressful for an opponent. As a conclusion, I think the drones are a combat multiplier. They are not the universal medicine, they are not the universal tools. I think we should be very careful when we think, because we tend to consider that having drones will solve all the problems. I don't think it's the case. I still believe that in order to achieve victory, you need a person in the loop, on the loop, call it however you want it, but it's the human factor that actually contributes. Yes, we're going to see drones on the battlefield of the future. Yes, we are going to divide. Definitely, we will be forced to have that action, counteraction type of philosophy, in which the drones will determine how you counter the drones, and we have already seen a lot of hardware out there and software trying to cope with that. I will leave it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General. You said that you are not an expert, but thank you that you enlightened us a little bit. You placed the drones into the theory of warfare, and that was very good. I would conclude that Ukrainians and Ukraine forces moved it to the next level in all the domains. We are not just saying air, but drones, speaking of water, underwater, and even on the ground. And of course, this is not a factotum. This is not the solution for all the problems in the warfare, and the human factor is still paramount, even in this kind of asymmetric warfare. And then, if we are not that lucky with an expert for the first intervention, second intervention should be from an expert. Mr. Sirko Galuchenko is a founding partner of SARS Capital in Ukraine. In addition, he has been on board of Altamira in Bratislava, Slovakia, and his prior expertise and experience, including leading positions for Renaissance Capital Ukrainian branch, SBC Warburg in New York and Toronto Dominion Securities, and he was an advisor for significant Canadian, American, and European firms. So on the topic of drones and anti-drone warfare, Mr. Sirko Galuchenko.
Thank you. I will try to be, first of all, I'm completely in agreement with everything my colleague said. A very systematic, very sort of structured way of looking at it. I am on a country, I'm not military, even though I had to serve in the army at the beginning of this affair. But I am an aerospace engineer, and my initial military specialization is called UAV control and guidance. I graduated 35 years ago. I'm an old fellow with honor. I worked in the plant that was making ballistic missiles for a couple of years after university, and I gave myself word that I will not touch the fucking weapon ever again, because seriously it was a lot of stress, because I saw the quality of Soviet nuclear sort of installations at the point of assembly. I was fighting with my sort of plant management, and I knew that one day it will explode somewhere. and it's not it's not a pleasant thing to be part of it. In 2014, I was investment banker working in Ukraine. I came back many years ago, and I was approached by a group saying that Russians are messing with our East. We are going there. We need to buy bullets. So people, for their own money, were buying bullets for Kalashnikov machine gun, and they're going on their own initiative because there was no army, no police, no nothing. It was just Russian troops dressed up as clowns and whatever, as Putin said, purchased in the store. So they asked me $3,000, and I was standing with this dilemma. And I'm glad I took a right side, but I was not really involved until 24th of February of 22, when I had already purchased a lot of sniper equipment, and I joined military intelligence as a sniper. And my commander soon realized that I'm an old fart, and he said that if you will be running around, with us with a 50 kilogram behind your back for 50 kilometers, we will be carrying dead body back. So you better go and become a pilot. And so I became a UAV pilot. I became instructor. I was using one of the first M777 guns that arrived to Ukraine, and it was a big change after old Soviet 150 millimeter cannons that, in terms of precision. What I will try to use my few minutes that I have, not to give you a systematic sort of analysis, because I can talk for hours and hours. I've been living, breathing, and sleeping with this UAV situation. I will try to give you a number of sort of illustrations in real life, how it looks, trying to give you in dynamics how the UAV market was developing for Russians and for us. Just quickly. First, one of the, well, not first, but it was in second front kind of situations where I found myself in. We were beyond zero. Our job was to do reconnaissance forward, and over our head there was a lot of shells flying. And I often tell this story so people understand that this is true. I was sitting because nothing was hitting us. And you are in a fortunate position, not unfortunate like back there, where you can count. So I was counting, it was 1 to 30. It was 30 Russian shells against 1 Ukrainian shell. You can imagine, especially military people, how people should feel in trenches with such disparity. It improved slightly. Lately it was 10 to 1. Now they hope to get 6 to 1. But with 6 to 1, you understand, you can't win the war, yeah? Everyone understands that. At that time, it was clear that reconnaissance is not exactly end point for UAVs. It was very clear that the only thing we can do, because Russians have ultimately more shit than we will ever collect from the entire world. They have collected it along with North Korea and China for years and tens of years. And it's endless supply of that crap. So what we had to do, we had to invent a way to deliver very precisely and very minimal load and hit and target what we need. And at that time it was clear that loitering munition is what we need. And we started working on that. By fall of 22, it was clear that it's FPV. By January of 23, it was clear that FPV as a copter, it has limited range. So it was planes, FPV planes carrying certain load. There were a lot of experiments with bombers. They proved to be much less effective for the lack of precision, limited load they can carry, etc. However, by first quarter of 23, it was clear that what we have talked and tried and did in tens, Russians turned and did in thousands. We had one manufacturer that told me that they came to buy certain parts in China, and Chinese contracted, and then Chinese, in the usual commercial discipline, said, sorry, nothing. Russians have bought the whole thing for 3-6 months forward. But then they called back, and they said, we have a good news for you, Ukrainians. What? We can sell you now this part. So Russians didn't buy? No, they bought the plant. So we built the plant for them. They bought the whole plant and they built it. For this particular component, I'm not saying which one. So Russians have realized that, now Russian side, when we started the war, we had Mavic 3 DJI, nice piece, lots of complications because Chinese were much more generous with information on the Russian side. We had, first 2 months, we had lots of hits on Ukrainian pilots because of the disclosed location. I'm not going into technology, but there is a thing called Aeroscope, which was made available in volume for Russians, very much not so for Ukrainians. But then we turned it around, and we really have done miracle with that. And this is our IT engineers, and it was well done. But basically, we started with Mavics, just seeing what is there, correcting artillery and seeing. Russians started with Orlan. Orlan is a thing that flies some 1,000 meters, has a night vision, has a very well-developed optical system, gimbal stabilized, good quality, cheap, done in a minimalistic way, but very functional. The volume of that production that they had before the war is in tens of thousands. I cannot give you exact number, but we are talking 50, 60, 100,000 planes that they had. So they had endless supply. And that thing was always up in the air, so they saw everything is happening. They were correcting artillery very efficiently. That's the starting point. Then they started complicating their system, and they introduced Zala. Zala is a simpler electrical thing, doesn't make much noise, slightly more difficult to see it on the thermal vision, but Zala is instrumental for Lancet to hit. So now they have Orlan is back, usually not crossing the front line. Zala is forward, sometimes above 500, sometimes at 400, 350, depending on the clouds. And then the Zala controls Lancet. Lancet is a very dangerous thing with 3-kilogram explosive. 1 month ago, they changed the grenade. It's now 2.7. They made a special grenade. We have found it, disassembled it. People are working. We'll replicate. We'll send it back. But this is very efficient tool, very expensive for them. So that's how they started. Then they figured that FPV is something they have to learn. They massively purchased it. They started training people. They're getting better. But on overall, Ukrainian skills are much better in terms of humans, not in terms of technology, but humans. And yesterday, I was asked by one of the generals a specific question on specific equipment. I called this morning a unit that I have been working with, and they are the name that is now on all the news, the hottest sort of point in the battle. And I asked them about that thing, but in addition to that, the officer told me that in one day, yesterday, they received 10 FPV kamikaze planes carrying each 3-kilogram grenade. And that's for one unit that holds maybe 5 kilometers of a front line in one day. So next, they realized that they cannot kill us all with their Lancet, too expensive. So they took our initiative, which we have been developing the last 12 months, and now they put it on an industrial scale, because if they can afford in 5 kilometers in one day, make 10 times 10 planes, that means that it's massive. And every time they invent something, we invent something, and vice versa. Now I wouldn't do predictions or what will happen. It's a critical situation on Ukrainian front. It's very difficult. If you have seen how Ukrainian villages and towns look after Russians come to it, you appreciate that what these animals do. And they will keep doing it until we make it so painful to that completely sort of tolerant nation. And the only thing we can do, we can turn their cities into something that would remind Mariupol or other locations on our side. I have to state, and happy to say that, that Ukrainians are very careful selecting targets. I was in the group discussions selecting targets in Belgorod region, and the people exclude not only hospitals or residential areas, even the transformer station, the electrical supply station was excluded when I was there, and the commander said, no, that's civilian object, we shouldn't. Even though in that area there are launchers that hit Kharkiv with direct missile attacks. I'm not saying that Ukrainians are saint. No, they're not. But for sure, the attitude is to exclude civilian objects and civilian population from. Nevertheless, what is happening now with Ukrainians going 600 kilometers, 800 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers, 1,200 kilometers, and I can share with you maybe a surprise that comes. I was at the plant that is making 3,000 kilometers delivery. Until we come to Vladivostok, we should not stop. It should all go there. Unfortunately, something might hit Mongolia, which has nothing to do with with Russia, but that's life. Romanians are getting some surprises, as well as Poles. To wrap it up, I have a presentation. I don't want to go through it, but there are conclusions. There are some political conclusions. There are some human conclusions. The one thing that I wanted to share with you, as crowd is diverse, but it's politically connected and the media connected. Ukrainians did not wake up aggressive, bloodthirsty and all. It took us 10 years for me to transform myself, my mentality from $3,000 and I'm standing and thinking somebody will get killed, to me buying sniper rifles, and to me spending 24 hours a day loading planes with explosives. It's a long trip. So if your nations will have to travel that, don't think it will happen in one day. And don't think that if you are attacked, being Moldova or anyone. By the way, Moldova, I have a lot of sympathy because they are really on the first line. Don't expect people to change their attitude, which is a perfectly human attitude. No one of us is born to kill another human being. By doing that, you are sort of crossing the line, which never will let you to come back. It's a one-way thing, and there is no comeback. So people naturally resist, and they will resist. Now, the governments, the people, the media, you have to prepare your people. You have to tell them what to do. That's number one. Number two, if you ever work with Ukraine, you will understand the saying that Russia is fighting a war, country of slaves against country of free people. I love that phrase. It's very true. But what it gives you that country of slaves that have centralized power, a lot of resources, trillions of dollars from gas and oil, trillions, and vertical of power. The only way to resist, it's a horizontal connections and civil society. I was asked today not to criticize Ukrainian leadership, and I have to tell you that we all respect we are in a war, and our president is a military commander, so we have to be careful and not to criticize American elections. So I'm not going to. But I have to tell you that if you want to do anything with Ukraine, helping, other than governmental things that should go on and that should happen and we should not stop it, it takes a long time with NATO being NATO, with Ukrainian government being Ukrainian government, with all of this, congressional, whatever. Let it be. But the most effective and the only effective mechanism inside Ukraine is horizontal. I work with 200 different units in the army. I work with 300 companies that produce drones. I work with 200 or 300 engineering teams that do development. If I personally want to make difference, I would take a team, and that's what I do every day, team that designs, come to them and tell them that they are freaks and they should get out of their basement, bring them to the front line, to the military, not to the 0, but -30, whatever, like, you know, in a fairly safe location. And then bring some money and resources, and then say, can you think how to, can you finance, can you actually imply, and maybe you can make it work. And that's the only way to do. So think about those horizontal. Please come, get my contact, go through any other contact. Ukrainian army is not an army of anarchists. There is a discipline, but there is a lot of freedom. I don't think that, and you know, critical times ask for unusual decisions and behavior. We have this brigades system. Each brigade has as a commander of brigade, he has a lot of freedom within the brigade. They all have engineering groups, they all have micro production, they all open. We don't do anything illegal. We always inform and instruct and sort of get the approval. But these horizontal connections can help you to produce weapons for your needs, you to get experience back from Ukrainians, Ukrainians to get material things to apply and win, and us together go into civilian life and have civilian applications on UAVs. And the one reason why Ukraine was successful at the beginning is because we are, as an agricultural country, created a huge agricultural drone sector. We had these big drones, what they call witches, Russians called witches. Those drones burned more tanks and personal carriers of Russians than artillery. Can you imagine that? So these are night bombers, size of 3 these tables, put in like humongous. They carry up to 40 kilograms. They come 50, 70 meters above the ground, very low, makes a lot of noise. A lot of them are shot down, but they come, they drop, and they hit. And that happened because we had this big civilian sector that came from agriculture. So the moment war started, people, what can I do? Okay, I can do this and I can take it to military. War is a catalyst of engineering thinking and engineering progress. And it goes into civilian life. And it feeds your economy. So any company, that any group, any investor that wants to come and act, you're welcome. There was a question whether to invest, whether not to invest, whether wait for a ceasefire or invest. My wife forced me to bring our children 5 months after the beginning of the war back to Ukraine, the small children. And they live with us in Kiev. And our attitude, I shouldn't say swear words, F you. We have to leave. You know, Russians want us to stop living, stop smiling, you know, stop marrying, stop giving birth, stop having, you know, parties, and F you. We will leave despite and whatever. And the same attitude, I think, invest in Ukraine. I mean, be smart about that, but there are ways of dealing with Ukraine in agricultural, in food production, in transportation, in many aspects. We will prevail. The only thing, my sort of, my message to Western community, let's fight, but not to the last drop of Ukrainian blood. Because last drop of Ukrainian blood will means the first drop of Moldovans, the first drop of Baltics, and the most importantly, whatever happens in Taiwan and all of it, I mean, the world has to come to normal thinking. And we know that Ukraine is critical. So don't wait, come do what you can, find contacts. I'm not the only one. You have Ukrainian lawyer here sitting. I'm sure she can help. I mean, a lot of some parliamentary deputies are here. You will always find a lot of responses from Ukraine. We are very appreciative. Somebody said that we're not appreciative. We appreciate everything. Every blanket we got, every person you received, you know, every bullet you gave us, every grenade, like everything we receive, we appreciate. But war, as military know, is a very expensive thing. in 1 hour of fight, you might lose all vehicles of the department, of the unit. Like in one, like in 2-3 mines, and it's gone. And so everything, ammunition. You have to feed hundreds of thousands, soon to be million. It's a very expensive exercise. And our Russian, anyway, animals are trying to take us for this long ride. So we lose the focus, the desire, the strength. F them. Not going to happen. At least not on the Ukrainian side. I hope same as on your side. Thank you.
Thank you. So we continued. Now we had an investment banker explaining how to build the capability, basically. We are on the right track, sir. Thank you very much. We clearly understood the importance of building the hardware, the capability, and that the numbers and mass still are important. And how is this dealing with the asymmetric and precision approach that Ukraine chooses, because it was the only choice available in this warfare? So then we will continue by using a Navy SEAL officer to explain us how is the drones, because Admiral Olson is a Navy SEAL officer, retired in 2011. His career culminated as the head of U.S. Special Ops Command, responsible for the mission readiness and global deployment of more than 65,000 all-service special operation forces, with a budget of more than $10 billion. He was highly decorated for both service and valor, and also a distinguished graduate of the United States Naval Academy and the Naval Postgraduate School. He currently serves as a board member for Ocean Aero and director or advisor for several public and private companies and non-profit organizations. So, Admiral Olson, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Am I on? Yes, thank you very much for inviting me to this very important conference and for sitting on this panel with these distinguished experts. Whenever I ask anyone who has an idea about Russia-Ukraine war, what the United States military should learn, the first word is always drones, whether it's a Ukrainian fighter or an academic who has studied the war. Drones are what we can take away to build on. Not the only thing, but a most important thing. I have a professional and a personal affection for drones. I'll tell you a little bit about my personal affection. When I was a young Navy SEAL, I was a mini submarine pilot. Mini submarine, free flooding, launch off the shore, off a ship, off a mother submarine. You're sitting inside wearing a wetsuit exposed to the ambient water temperature. It's about 5 meters long, about 1 meter wide, propeller powered by batteries. And we were training for targets on the Kamchatka Peninsula. So we did a lot of our training off the coast of Alaska. And when you're sitting in a wetsuit in a submersible that's free flooding off the coast of Alaska for 6 hours, the Cold War is a very accurate term. And I was cold for years. And I always wondered, why can't we get the man out of this vehicle and let this vehicle be controlled by a person from outside it, not inside it? But the technology didn't exist then, and now it does. And I'm very glad to see it coming. Later in my career, when I commanded the United States Special Operations Forces, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Specialized Forces in Iraq and Afghanistan, we did incorporate what I might say the modern era of drone warfare into our operations. Remotely piloted vehicles, largely for reconnaissance, and then armed and conducting strike missions. And in my view, this gave us a great capability to go where a human shouldn't go. not where they can't go, but where they shouldn't go. Because it's too high, it's too far, it's too cold, it's too hot, it's too dangerous, it's too monotonous. We could replace that human with drones. And by the way, I think it brought an ethical element that didn't exist when firing at remote targets. When you fire an artillery round or a missile or a rocket or a bomb, you can't call it back. But when you fly a drone, you can have the tactical patience to surveil what is happening at that target site and see if it's really a terrorist with a rifle or is it a farmer with a shovel, and make that decision about whether to pull the trigger or not. And if the decision is to not pull the trigger, you can fly that drone home and go back another day. And so I think it added a very ethical element to the conflict. Now, we've watched Ukraine incorporate drones into their operations for more than 2 years. And this has taken drone warfare from the basic level to a medium advanced level, and there's still a long ways to go. And I'm not an academic, so I was kind of a practitioner of war, but what I have observed from the Ukrainian experience are the following. And I mean, the subject of this is lessons learned, so I'll just say 8 things. And I'm going to say them simply, but simple is not easy. There was a lot of Ukrainian energy, a lot of Ukrainian talent, a lot of Ukrainian blood expended for us to be able to learn these lessons. One, drones are good for a lot of things, much more than we thought they were before. I mean, they're reconnaissance platforms with eyes, with ears, with noses. They can sniff the air for radiation or pollution. They can sniff the water for oil leaks or plastic pollution. They can loiter a long time. They can go for a short time. They can strike. They can serve as target. Yeah, I should have that back. Thank you. They can serve as targeting mechanism. They can relay communications. And as I said, they can provide tactical patience to commanders in the decision making. And so this variety of things that drones can do that has been demonstrated very well by the Ukrainians. 2, a variety of drones is necessary. Drones are limited by speed or by payload or by range, fuel capacity, battery capacity. Some are very good for suicide strikes. Some are very good to stay a long time. Some are very good underwater. Some can creep across the land. We mentioned the explosive ordnance disposal mission. Some are good at low altitudes. Some are good at high altitudes. And so this variety of drones, to think that one drone can do it all, is not believable. And what the Ukrainians have done is demonstrate a rapid ability to develop numerous kinds of drones for specific applications on the battlefield, and they've done that very well. And I have to say, the company that I represent here today, Ocean Arrow, has developed a drone that both sails on the surface of the water while it charges batteries or maps a radar field, and then when it detects a threat, it can dive to avoid being killed or captured, but it can also perform underwater missions like patrol pipelines or defend oil rigs. So flexibility in a drone is a good thing, but a variety of drones is necessary. 3rd, imagination and innovation matter. And the ways that the Ukrainians have cleverly applied drones to their operations has been very impressive. In my world of special operations, we never owned the mass and we never owned the terrain. So we had to find some other way to get things done. And I think that's the Ukrainian example. In many cases, They don't own the terrain because the Russians have seized it. They don't own the mass because they're one-third the population of Russia. So they've had to be much more clever in their application of force, and our hat is off to them for that. 4, new technology can be incorporated quickly. That's not a lesson you should learn from the United States because we don't do that well. The Ukrainians have done it extraordinarily well. They have accelerated their development from the brain to the battlefield, from 2 or more years to less than 1 year. I think the XVIb maritime drone was taken from a diagram on a piece of paper to an attack on a bridge in less than 1 year. That's light speed in the world of military acquisition. 5, organizational design and operational doctrine must keep pace with technology development. And we often find that the rules for using technology lag behind the development of the technology by weeks or months or years. But the Ukrainians have managed to, with agility, reorganize in both the intelligence and the defense ministries around the concept of drone warfare and established even an innovation accelerator organization to make sure that the technologies that are developed are with acceleration applied in the operational environment. 6, it's a team effort. A number of nations, a number of defense industries, the partnership between uniformed military and the civilian sector, which is demonstrated on this platform in front of you, the nonprofit organizations, the individual volunteers, government civilians, non-government civilians have all come together to make this possible, united by the adversity of the Russian invasion and try to find their own way to help be part of the solution. But when you take any member of that team off the playing field, it slows down the entire game. And what we've seen is that all these players are not only on the field, but they're dressed for battle and ready to go to war. And it's been, again, very impressive. Number 7, humans are still essential. I think that if I look at my own country, 15 years ago, there was a zeal to unman everything that could be unmanned, believing that somehow that would save us manpower. It actually doesn't. But we also realize that there is value, as General Jakob said, there's value to having a human in the loop or on the loop or beside the loop, but somehow engaged in the solution, because drones can do, but they can't think. And they'll be accelerated and enhanced by artificial intelligence, but they still won't be able to apply all of what a human can do in the decision-making process. So my formula for that is that machines are better than humans at certain things. Humans are better than machines at certain things. But a human and a machine working together are better than either one alone at almost everything. And the challenge now is to figure out the best place to make sure that that human adds the most value. And this is changing all the time as the technology and the doctrines develop. And number 8, countering drones is still very difficult. And we've come up with some ways to attack drones: electronic jamming, high-powered microwaves, some kinetic strikes with nets or ballistic objects to shoot down or knock down or freeze, paralyze the drones. But a swarm of drones is still a very dangerous thing. And there is a lot yet to learn about that. There's a lot of technology yet to be developed. We have some lessons learned from the recent Israeli defense against the Iranian attack. A United States Navy ship in the Red Sea, USS Carney, returned to home port last week after 6 months in the Red Sea. In that 6-month deployment, it was attacked 59 times. One of the attacks was within 9 seconds of striking the USS Carney, but there were no successful strikes. There are some lessons to build on, but there's still a long way to go in countering drones. And I'll close by saying that the drone warfare is a developing field, and it's rapidly developing. And when I look at the pace of progress over just the last few years, and I look just a few years ahead, I cannot imagine actually what drone warfare will be. It will never replace humans. It will be enhanced by artificial intelligence. The databases will grow. The artificial intelligence algorithms will become much more sophisticated. Drones have a permanent place in the future of warfare. If you're in the drone business, business is likely to be good. And I think that all of us, I wish that there's an American drinking game where you hold a glass of your favorite beverage, and whenever you hear a word, you take a sip. And I was thinking today, I wish that we were playing that game with the word drone. Because if I took a sip every time I heard the word drone today, well, one, I probably wouldn't be able to sit here this afternoon. But I think it's indicative of the importance of drones in warfare, in the air, on the land, under the sea, at day, during the night, above the water, below the water, in good weather, in bad weather, at short range and long range. This is an important part of the future of warfare. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Admiral Olson. Thank you for the walk you gave us from ethical issues to the lesson learned from multi-purpose drone to the variety of drones to the final and ultimate role of the human factor in all this equation. Well, for our drinking game of tonight, we just have 3 minutes. At 10 past 18, it will be the last panel, Civis Pacem Parabellum. Our distinguished guest here has to step in the Chief of Defense shoes and participate in that panel. So we do have time for one question, or maybe two if we are quick.
Hello, Anastasia Belkhavitinova, Kinsteller law firm. I work with more than 10 companies who supply drones to Ukraine, who participated in state procurement. I assist BAE System, who entered Ukrainian market. I was responsible for the first venture of Rheinmetall in Ukraine. Thank you, speakers. You're all very great speakers, and you raised many important questions. I wanted probably as a quick remark also to add that one of the challenges we face now is the lack of efficient communication between sometimes our Western partners and our militaries. So the technology which our Western partners supply to us, and we are super grateful for everything they do, but sometimes it's not what our militaries need. And our militaries sometimes are not good in actually making clear what are their needs. So I would appreciate your comments on how to make this communication better, on whether government to business level. And the second, you're all like very optimistic about the drones. We can start drinking again. But looking in a long-term perspective, do you think the drone technology will be able actually to fulfill the promise? Because counter-UAS technologies are also developing pretty fast. Thank you.
Please, that would have been my question as well.
If I may, because definitely I need to leave in a couple of minutes. I'll start with the second question. I think I'm an armor officer by training, and I have heard very, very many times that the tanks are something that you're not going to see on the battlefield. And life proves that it happens, and it happens numerous times that the tanks still have a word to be said. I think we can draw the analogy towards the drones. I think they will be, and I fully agree with what Admiral Olson said, it's going to be a constant reality on the battlefield. And that's why I pointed out it will be an action and reaction towards the technological developments. We will always have somebody smarter to think how to counter a certain technology. It happened before in warfare history, and it will happen again every single time somebody has a bright idea, because that's the beauty of the human brain. On the first question, I do believe that commonality of understanding is a common denominator to how you express the operational need and how that translates in the provider giving you what you need. I think it's a two-way street, and if you enhance the communication and you are quite clear and you speak the language of the producer. I had recently an interesting experience going and see some engineers, and the first thing I said, you know what, speak my language if you really want me to understand. So I'll leave it here. Thank you.
I will add, again, I believe in horizontal contacts. People are smart or not so smart, and it's.
I'm sorry about that, but
you still have 9 minutes.
Really?
It's 10 past 80.
10 past 8? Okay. Okay. I thought I have the time to prep myself for the next.
Hey, do that.
Okay, go ahead.
So, let me finish. So there are some smart people, smart, motivated, focused, good managers in Ukrainian army, and these smart people, what they did from very beginning, they pulled some. I've seen one. In fact, this is probably the most known, respected unit that does the UAV, and when I joined them on the front line, they all looked like bunch of drug addicts sitting at night, smoking, drinking coffee and tea, very, very strong tea and not alcohol, obviously, but and sitting and working with the video that they have taken during the day, and then some of them would go into night mission, and so these people slept for 2 hours. Now they have a great unit, and they build it, and it all was done by selecting right people, motivating them, and then so if you deal with Ukrainian army, don't stop at the Ministry of Defense. Again, I'm not criticizing anything, but go down to the military unit, talk to people who actually use that, and talk to them, ask them questions, and don't settle for whatever you have been given as a contact. Find those teams that really work in a smart way, and you will get a lot of good information from it.
Admiral Olson, please help General Jakob as well. But be quick. Thank you very much.
I don't think I have anything to add to that. I agree. I think cyber warfare is a good model where you see as the attack capability develops, the defense capability develops in the attack and then the defense, and it keeps climbing until, and nobody ever is ahead by much. And I think that's the way it's going to be with drone and counter-drone. And we can't ever relax on either one. We will always strive to develop the best counter-drone, and we will always strive to develop the best capability against those are countering. But I do think that technology is going to continue to march up both of those ladders. And that's just the way warfare works.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. I really do want to give you a chance to join the last panel, which looks very, very interesting. It starts in 5 minutes. Join me in a round of applause for our distinguished speakers.